Everybody's giving AI advice right now, and most of it will set your team back years. I've helped organizations recover over $50 million in wasted spend back to the bottom line by following one simple rule. You have to automate the constraint, not just the chore. So in this video, I'm going to go over 9 very common but incorrect pieces of advice in the AI space, and then give you the good advice that you should follow instead. Alright, so number 1, go after the low-hanging fruit. Now, looking across your business, there's probably all sorts of things that AI could solve very, very quickly. These are typically the tedious, repetitive tasks. They kind of pile up. Maybe you spend a little bit of time on them every day, and it would be a great value add to go ahead and get rid of those. And while that can be nice, and while that will get you a little bit of time, it's not the thing that's really going to move your business forward. So a lot of where I see people go wrong is they start with things like, oh, it'd be great to have appointments automatically set from my email, or it would be great to be able to handle follow-ups in an automated fashion, something like this. And while that does save that time, if those tasks are already getting done, that's not really going to move you forward quickly. What will move you forward quickly is to look for the main constraint, the one thing that is holding your business back. Now, the easiest way to find that constraint is to go through a little thought exercise. You say, if I was to get double my current client base right here, right now, if I was to just get double my clients, what would break in my business? Would I be able to handle that? And if not, what would break? And whatever that thing is that would break, wherever your business would falter first under this new load, that is the main constraint. And if you are one of the lucky few whose answer to that question is just, oh, well, I'd just be able to handle that business, then the only thing you should be focused on right now is getting the marketing in place to get that business, because that is really the only thing that's holding you back. Number 2, you can use AI to address uncertainty. Now, this is fundamentally just not true, but something that's very common that I see all of the time is that people will try to use AI in order to understand business situations and how they should do and improve things that require a little bit more nuance and more context than the AI model is going to be able to understand. So things such as, hey, let me update my sales scripts. Hey, let me understand what new product I should launch or how I should go into the market in this way. Now, AI can assist with a lot of research in this way, but the way that you use AI to make strategic decisions is fundamentally different than the way that you use AI to automate business processes. When you're looking to use AI to help make strategic decisions, you're typically using AI to automate the collection and synthesis of information that you are then using yourself to create a judgment call. Whereas what you want to use AI for, and where you're going to get the bang for your buck, is in automating things that are already very well understood. So what you want to do is you want to apply the certainty test. You're going to look at the process that you are thinking of automating, and you are going to ask, can I define every single decision tree in this process within, if this happens, then that happens, framework? Can I do that? Can I list out all of the different ways that this process should work? If the answer is yes, then you have something that is ripe for automation that you can be fairly certain that if you apply AI and automation to that system, it is going to cause a positive benefit in your company. If the answer to that question is no, what you're going to do instead is you're going to scale uncertainty, scale variance, and scale unexpected situations, which are going to turn into fires. And what you end up doing is scaling problems instead of scaling solutions. Number 3, automate where your team is struggling. Now, it's very common to look at your business and say, okay, so I know that my team struggles here. We encounter some kind of friction point here. This process takes way longer than it should. So if we just put AI into this process somehow, if we just fit it in there, then we're going to be able to get a return because we'll get all of this time back. And on the surface, that does make sense. It does make a lot of sense. But what's very common is in a lot of these situations where the team is struggling a little bit or we're encountering some kind of friction in the organization, it is because the problem is either not very well understood or because there are dynamics in play that you do not have very much control over. And so, very common areas where this can occur are things such as the sales process. How can we make the sales process shorter? There must be a way with AI that we can make the sales process shorter. And the desire is to look at this process and say, okay, so if I'm able to send these emails out faster, if I'm able to do this thing faster, then that's going to work. But if the actual problem is, say, in the decision hierarchy within the organizations that you're going after, or there is a difference between organizations that close faster versus organizations that close slower if you're selling B2B, and you need to figure that out, then just trying to apply AI to the step-by-step process in which the team is encountering that friction isn't going to really help. What you have to make sure of whenever you're looking at opportunities is you need to make sure that you have all of the data that you need to fully define the problem that you are trying to solve. So a good example of this, if you know that you get longer support times because it takes too long to take all of the notes and fill out the post ticket response, fill out your ticket response in your response system, and it would be better to have AI do that so that you can handle more tickets and handle those tickets faster, then that is a great place to put artificial intelligence. But you can only put artificial intelligence in places where you fully understand and fully have the data around what all the steps are, how long each is taking, and where you're actually going to get that return on your time. So you want to look at processes you fully understand for automation, not just the ones that your organization struggles in. Number 4, you can use artificial intelligence to reduce headcount. Now, it's very easy to look across your organization and say, okay, well, I could probably have AI do a third of the jobs that are here, 20% of the jobs that are here, something like that. But that misses a very critical component of business, and that is that business is primarily a human-to-human interaction. Your team is your moat. That is part of your competitive advantage. So what you want to do when you're looking at your team is you don't want to sacrifice all of the effort that you already put into finding them, acquiring those different skill sets, making sure that they were trained properly, compensating people properly, making sure that everybody was happy, and having all of these people learn the very nuanced nature of each of their jobs. Instead of getting rid of all of the work that you've already done here, what you want to do is you want to look at the jobs that each of these people are doing and ask the question, if they didn't have to do this, what else could they be doing that would move the business forward? And you can take advantage of the workforce you already have and optimize that in order to be able to take on more work. If you're trying to grow your organization anyway, it doesn't make sense to cut headcount. It instead makes sense to increase throughput. So you already have the staff. You can increase the throughput by looking at how to make the time that they are spending more valuable rather than get rid of the amount of time that you have at your disposal through the resources that you have hired. Number 5, you should build your AI tool in-house so that you have the IP and that everything is under your control. Now, unless you are using the solution either to boost valuation in front of an exit or to become the central thesis of your entire organization, it is not worth the amount of time, the amount of vetting, and the amount of money that is required to really build a truly custom artificial intelligence solutions. Now, since AI became very mainstream, there are hundreds of tools that come out every day solving every single little nook and cranny of every business situation you can think of. And even if you do not have the time or the wherewithal to go out and find what you need out on the market in a tool, there are people who specialize in understanding all of the tools and how to bring them together in order to get done what you want to do. In the vast majority of circumstances, it is not going to make sense to build something custom. What you're going to want to do instead is use one or more tools in a very specific way, in a very specific workflow that fits the needs of your organization. And again, if you don't know how to do this, or it doesn't make sense to try to figure this out on your own, there are plenty of businesses whose entire business model is understanding this space, and they have a track record of delivering real results for real companies just like yours in building these custom configurations. And that is really the direction you want to go. If you take one or more off-the-shelf tools and put them together to solve your problem, you are going to save a ton of money, you're going to save a ton of time, and you're really going to make sure that you get the return on investment that you're looking for out of your AI journey. Number 6, start with a small pilot to see how it goes before committing to a full project. Now, this is really good advice, and you should always start with a pilot, but what I see so much of the time is that you start with a pilot and then that pilot never really wraps up. You get into a perpetual state of being in a pilot, and then because there are little tweaks, little things that need to change because no solution is going to be perfect, you end up staying in this pilot stage forever and never actually growing the solution beyond this pilot stage in order to be able to provide real value. So what you want to do instead is you want to make sure that from the very beginning you assert some type of timeline. This pilot is going to be X number of days, and at the end of X number of days, if Y, Z, Q criteria are met, then we are going to move forward. And if those criteria are not met, we are not going to move forward. If you just make it very black and white from the beginning, you create the test conditions, you know what you're trying to solve for, you know what benefit you're trying to get, then you'll know within that period of time if it's going to work. And if you get to the end of that pilot period and it is a situation in which, okay, well, maybe it would work under different constraints in a different way, doing a different thing, then it might make sense to continue to do that. But what you really want to do is avoid this trap of getting stuck in the pilot that never grows, because you can have the greatest automation in the world, tweak it to death, get that 1%, 2% extra benefit, optimize it to death. But if it's only being used in a very small part of your organization, it's really not going to actually get you anywhere, and you're not going to see the kind of results that you're really looking for when it comes to implementing AI in your business. Number 7. You should use artificial intelligence to create dashboards so that leadership has greater visibility. Up front, this makes a lot of sense. Why not use artificial intelligence to go through your business, comb through all of the different data sources that you have, compile information, and display that information in a way that's really going to be beneficial and really drive the business forward? Now, the problem with this is that if you don't already have an established data protocol in place, you don't already have KPIs defined, understand what those KPIs say about your business, and you don't already have data in place that is clean, accurate, data that you're already using in reports, then you're not really going to get any benefit out of this. All you're going to do is have a pretty screen that shows you things, but since you're not used to making decisions based on this data, since you don't really know what this data represents because you didn't design the data, there's going to be a disconnect between whatever system you're able to create with AI and the decisions that you make. And your decisions are not going to be quite as accurate as you think that they're going to be. So making a dashboard with AI makes sense if you already have an established data collection protocol in place and there's already some kind of reporting structure that you're using in order to make decisions in your organization. And a dashboard would enable you to make those decisions faster because you would have access to real-time data, and that real-time nature of that data is superior to the weekly or monthly reporting period that you currently are using. If your reporting sophistication is anything below that, then creating a dashboard is actually going to do more harm than good, because the data that is reflecting off of the dashboard is not going to be data that you really understand at the level of nuance that's required to be able to use that data in making those critical decisions that matter. Number 8, evaluate AI tools by watching demos and reading case studies. So, of course, it's a good idea to look at the demos, look at the case studies, and make sure you have an understanding of how the tools work. But demos and case studies are always designed to show the best that the company can possibly do, right? So demos are done on very curated data sets, very specific, pristine things that the company has vetted to make sure that it is always going to work and it's always going to present well. And the case studies are, of course, cherry-picked to be the best of the best that the company has ever been able to do. So what you really want to do is, if it's a product, you want to get those free trials, potentially run multiple free trials at the same time if there are competing offers. And if it's from a vendor, you do want to have some kind of tightly contained, time-boxed scope on a pilot where you're seeing your real live data with your spreadsheets, your information, the reality of the data with all of its mistakes, all of the problems that it has, and you want to make sure that this process is going to work at a small scale on a real data set, because that's the only way you're going to be able to truly tell whether or not that solution can scale, and whether or not that test works out is the difference between something that makes you hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars or costs you hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So it's very important to make sure that you always test with real data before you move to scale your solutions. Number 9, you need an AI strategy, so you should look at what other people are doing and use that to kind of determine what your AI strategy should be. The fundamental issue with this one is this idea of an AI strategy. A lot of business owners I see are going about this with the idea of, I just need to figure out how I can take AI and put it into my business, because if I take AI and I put it into my business, then my business will be better. And that's not how it works. How it works is you have an operational strategy. You have constraints that you're looking to solve. You have a plan to move forward and get past the roadblocks and the sticking points that you're currently having. And that plan just so happens to have AI involved. There are problems in your organization. There are things that are holding you back. You have operational constraints. And in evaluating those constraints, maybe what were the top 3 things that held you back last quarter, the top 3 struggles that you had, or the top 3 issues, look at those very critically and determine if there are places in there where root causes could be solved with the application of artificial intelligence. That is where you're going to really figure out what your AI strategy should be. Because if you're looking at where all of the different places that I could potentially put AI for AI's sake, you're really just spending money in a market that has a lot of noise in it. A lot of people are trying to get you to buy things that you probably don't really need. And you need to focus on, what do my operations need to move forward? If you start with the operations and then apply AI as the tool that you're using to solve operational constraints, you're going to have a much better time, and you are far more likely to see a return than if you are looking at AI for AI's sake. Appreciate you watching this. If you liked what you saw, please share this with another business owner who's forward thinking, who's really looking at how they can get an advantage using artificial intelligence, but doesn't want to waste time making the wrong moves.